Welcome back for part 2 of Mert McNaughton's interview.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely the truth. And the more you share your pain, your losses, one, it heals you, but it does open the floodgates for others to want to, I say walk alongside you, and be championed by you, because that's just sort of what happens. And I think in grief and trauma, when we share, others go, oh, well, she survived it. Let me kind of walk alongside her, because then I've got the courage to survive too, that kind of thing.
Yeah, empowerment.
Yeah. So you really left home at what, 19?
Yeah, it was around 19. I had this opportunity. I worked retail. I didn't go to college. I worked retail, and I had this opportunity to move up, get out of the house. I got out of the house, thank goodness. And that was hard for my mom. I remember she was very upset and very mad at me that I wanted to move out. She wanted to control, and I was the youngest. So I was the last one in the house. She did not want to be alone. She wanted someone always there. And I also was helping pay the bills.
Right.
So when I finally got out of there, it was like I never looked back. And I, would rather, scrape pennies together and pay rent than have to go and live with her again, because it would have just been back in the cycle.
Yeah.
And getting out of that cycle is so hard.
So hard.
So hard.
So you left, and I think you went to Chicago.
I did. I moved. I had this opportunity to go be a district trainer, my retail career was just incredible because I had moved up really fast. I had gotten my first keys to a store when I was 18. I moved up through various management positions, and then I had this opportunity to move to Chicago and become a district trainer. And at that point, I was around 2021, and that was the coolest experience I think I could have ever had, to just get out of Alabama and move to a big city and, just while out and have the time of my life and see what people are doing outside of McCalla, Alabama,
And there was a whole lot going on.
There was a whole lot going on. And, that city was always booming. I don't think I ever slept. I had the best time. Met so many, lovely people. And then it was all of a sudden one day, it was, 2008 recession. One day I walked into my job and I got fired. And I was so distraught. I didn't know what to do. And the reason I got fired simply because it's like, hey, you make too much money and there's people desperate for jobs. So we're just going to go ahead and let go of all of our higher paid people and hire people for less. Just that typical recession cycle. And so I literally packed up my car and I moved back to Alabama, and I was like, I'm going to go to hair school.
Was there ever in your mind a thought that was something you wanted to do? Or did it come because of, something difficult that happened?
I did hair for my friends all through that time. I really wanted to go to hair school when I got out of high school. But my family told me that wasn't a good avenue for a career, and that I should stick to retail. And going to kind of wanting to be the people pleaser, I was like, okay, cool. I'll just stick with retail. And, it was always on the back of my mind, and I would do my friend's hair and, my own hair and makeup and next thing you know, it just got to this point where I was like, I could easily pick up another retail job, or I could just go to school and become a hairstylist and do what I want to do and defy what I was told wasn't going to be a good career path for me.
And so then you landed in a really big salon, right?
I did. I was very excited. It was, one of the best salons in Birmingham, Alabama. And I was able to grow really quickly. So I became a six-figure stylist within my first 4 years behind the chair, which was pretty exciting, because at that point I'm in my mid-20s making six figures and, traveling, having a great time. and enjoying life. But still in this background, I had this struggling relationship with my mother. You know, I was always embarrassed to share any of that. I think that's when really I started realizing behind the chair, you know, like, okay, my life wasn't normal, because I still had not really dug into my traumas yet in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
I was still
Who
like,
has?
yeah, right. You know, when you're 20, you're still like, your frontal cortex is still developing. There's things, your brain hasn't clicked yet. So, you know, I'm still the happy-go-lucky Mert that everybody saw, but there was just this moment always in the background that, you know, if I was going to get a phone call from my mom and have her, you know, telling me how terrible I am, and, you know, it just always was something, always a cycle. Again, I just describe it as these cycles that she just needed to wrap someone up into them to justify her actions.
Yeah.
You know, just enough where she can turn it around on you.
Yeah, and just enough control to keep you from 100% thriving.
Exactly, because it was always a threat. Like, if you don't do what I say, then I'm going to go tell your grandparents that you're not doing what I'm saying. And, you know, family's forever. Family's forever. And, you know, you're going to church and you're doing these things, and next thing you know, I'm like heading into my 30s, and I'm like, well, shit, I literally have just been doing what I've been told almost my entire life.
That's a really big realization.
Yeah.
You know, just to sit back and go, oh, I've built this entire life because everybody told me to do it this way. And I really don't want to do it this way.
I don't want to do it this way.
I think it was also, I don't remember ages, but I'm going to say it was maybe around 28, 29. You started to talk about, I want my own salon.
Yeah.
And you had no idea what that meant.
No, I did not.
Or how hard it would be.
No, I didn't.
You know, you just had, it was so kind of amazing to watch that you just thought, well, I want it, I'm going to do it, and I know it's going to be successful, kind of thing. And I remember saying to you one time, and I felt really badly about it, because you said, well, what do you think about this, and what do you think about that? And it was, you know, just sort of all over the place, and I was like, and at this point, I've got a fairly large marketing agency. I am, you know, branding really big clients. I've done a lot of work in business, and all I knew to say was, I think you just don't know what you don't know, you know, and I can't give it to you, you know, and you're going to run long on this without any advice. And I'm just going to be going, okay, I'll support you. I'll do what I can.
Yeah. And, you know, I took that advice and I ran with it. You know,
there was no advice.
Yeah.
I gave you no advice.
But
at the
to
time.
me, it was. It's like you don't know what you don't know.
So just go if you're going to go.
Yeah.
I mean,
just
but you
pivot.
didn't put together a board. You didn't get big investors. I mean, you did get an investor, I think.
Yeah.
But, you know, you didn't put together a structure around you to help do it. You just dove in, rented a space.
I did. I just remember sitting at my kitchen table and writing out every expense I could think of what I would need for a business. Because I was like, that's where I need to start. Like, how much is this going to cost? And then it was like, okay, go find the money. And I have a business partner, and me and my business partner, and how we met was through the salon we were at. And we just always found ourselves being the only ones really busy in the salon, you know, and we'd be like, and then we started hanging out, and, you know, there was just this growth of friendship that we were able to say, hey, you know, like, let's do this. Why don't we do this together? It'll be fun, you know? It'll be fun.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun. And I remember we just started like going to banks. We just would walk into banks and be like, give us money. And then they're like, who are y'all? Like, what are you doing? And I ended up like, you know, asking the right people, getting some connections. And that's when I found out about SBAs. So I was able to apply for this SBA. And then my business partner's brother was able to give us a little bit of investment, which helped us push through the SBA loan quicker. Things I didn't know, but things I was like, oh, that's cool. I didn't know that, but now I do know that. You don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
So then we get this place open, and it's like 6 chairs. We had, you know, around 6 employees. just out the gate, and paying a lease and having like around a 1,500 square foot space and just opened the doors and was like, well, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do this. And, all I knew to do was work. And that's something that I thought was instilled with me with my grandparents. My granddad was a farmer. So I would spend, if not like my entire year over at my grandparents' house. And, we would be out in the fields digging in the dirt and and things that I don't realize till later on how much it instilled value into me.
That work ethic.
My grandparents instilled a very good work ethic in me. That
you have a huge work ethic.
Yes.
I mean, I've watched you now for a long time.
Yeah.
Huge work ethic. You will outwork everybody you employ.
And I love it. I love it. I think that I set the present, I set the expectation that, I don't expect anybody to match me or be more than me, but it should feel pretty damn good to be like on the floor next to your boss being like, wow, like she's smashing it. And that I hope inspires my staff to be like, wow, like I want to work like that too. I want to be successful like that.
I remember you and Mark, your partner, came to me before the salon opened, and you were naming it and you were trying to do logo and branding, and you had this sense that you wanted, and you're sitting there in the chair and I'm looking at what you've done, which was good. And you kept talking about, I want to build a culture. And I was like, well, the salon business has a culture. You have expectations when you go into a salon to, get your color or get your cut. And different salons might be at different levels. But, there's just sort of an expectation of a kind of culture. And you said, no, I want to create a culture that is a movement. And I said, a movement? What in the heck are you talking about? I don't understand what you're trying to do. And I didn't get it. I really didn't get what you were trying to tell me. But I began to see it in action. And I don't know, I don't think you wrote it this way. Maybe you didn't. I didn't see it because you shared a lot with me. But you started to do something that hadn't been done in Birmingham, which is honestly so brave. And if you had told me you were going to do it, I would have said, no, don't. I don't think this is going to work. You have high-end clients from one part of the city, and I don't think they're going to like what you think is a movement in the industry. And so I'm glad we didn't have that conversation. But you were very much about, you as a straight woman were very much about inclusion from the get-go. And I don't know why. I don't know what propelled that. I don't know where that compassion and empathy came from. Would you speak to that a little bit?
Well, growing up, I had an adopted sister, and she was a lesbian, and she had a girlfriend. And so growing up, I saw that, and that was normal to me. And I just didn't think that there was anything wrong with it.
And so there wasn't friction in the home about her being gay, because you're still in this Mormon, very, highly defined what is marriage, what is gender, what is right.
Well, that's what was funny, would be at Sunday supper, and it's like you would never really admit that that's her girlfriend, but over time, as I got older, I was like, oh, she's a lesbian. And I understood that. And how I took religion was love everybody. So Beautiful. I think that is something that, Spirit still has in me, is that, everybody should be accepted.
I mean, that's a major concept. You come from the South. You come from a small town in the South. You come from a state that sadly has had more race issues than a lot of other places. You come from an extremely conservative religious background, and yet the amalgam of the way that landed in your insides was everybody deserves to be loved. I don't know how you got there, but that's just straight up miraculous. I'm going to say that. So, I mean, it's one thing to have a lesbian sister. It's another thing entirely to say, okay, that's influential, but I've got to make my money based on the client base I've built, they are predominantly conservative, wealthy people, but you start hiring absolutely with a narrow focus to inclusion.
Yes.
How did that work?
Well, when it all started, in the beginning when we were like, okay, our colors are going to be very like black and white, very clean. And when we were approaching into 2020, we expanded. So we went from our 1,500 square foot space to a 3,700 square foot space in the same building. Mm-hmm. And it was a great deal. And this is 2019 while we're trying to work all this out. Again, I don't know what I'm doing. I just go to the bank and I'm like, I want to expand. What do I do? And, SBA's like, oh, if you're expanding, we can give you more money. And I'm like, okay, I love debt. Let's take that on. Sure, I'll pay it off. I'll figure it out, But I knew that we needed to expand. Mm-hmm. So we expand, and then March of 2020, we opened.
In March of 2020, COVID was announced.
And then 2 weeks go by and we close down.
And you have all this debt.
And I have all this debt.
And 3,700 square feet.
Yeah.
And how many chairs?
I was up to 22 chairs at that point. And then I had 10 employees. And the business closed and we had no income for a few months.
I mean, the business didn't close as in close permanently, but you had to close because of COVID.
Exactly.
And began to do the dance that all small business owners were doing to say, can we stay alive?
Yes.
Can we keep this business open? How much of this debt can we carry? How are we going to be able to do this long term? And it was a tough dance.
It was. And, during that dance, there was just so much need coming out of the world. Need. There was just needs everywhere. And I just felt that, we were such this clean space and, elevated experience. But as we grew, there was just something that was calling to me of like, add more color. Mm-hmm. Add more color. Rainbow.
But I think a really big point we left out, and sorry, Mark, we left out that your partner is a gay man. So that's very influential in in your hiring practices, right?
Yeah.
But hiring practices are one thing, I think it's not just the spirit of inclusion, the spirit of acceptance. It is spiritual acceptance in the way that you've created the culture of this company. That's what's different to me.
Yeah. And, don't forget in all the 2020, I'm just digging deep into my childhood trauma and exploring, and doing shadow work and figuring out, I act like this because of this, and I'm reactionary because of this. So, this whole time while you're building this big, beautiful thing that's just bursting of rainbows and it's safer space and inclusivity and, everybody's welcome, you're struggling on the inside.
You're struggling on the inside. You're terrified you might have to close your business and carry $500,000 to $750,000 of debt forward. With no job or no business to pay for it, and you fell in love with a guy from Britain.
I know. Well, gotta
just have this long distance romance.
Well, you gotta throw love into the story.
Yeah, that does help a lot.
It does. That does help.
But it was a long distance relationship.
It was, and all because I broke him in line at a music festival cruise. Here we are.
There you are, rebelling again.
I know. Again, I think that I've always been a bit of a rebel, and there's like
quietly,
happily,
rebel happy.
Exactly. And there's such a, that's what's kind of interesting. And by the time I had met Jack, I had just decided I wasn't speaking to my mom anymore. It was like days before he walked into my life.
Interesting.
Yes. And for some reason, the first night we ever hung out at this music festival, I decided to tell him like, oh yeah, I just don't talk to my mom anymore. And, and I just put it out there because before it was this thing that I was so embarrassed about, having a mom like this and doing this. And then I remember I was just super vulnerable and like shared that with him. And he tells me this day that that was one of the most attractive things about me, was the fact that I had good boundaries.
Isn't that interesting? So one door closed and another one opened almost immediately.
Immediately.
The universe provided.
Within like 48 hours.
Yeah. Great manifesting.
Right?
Yeah.
I love, that's a good return. That's a good
ROI,
return,
right?
Yeah. I'm like, if I could have a 24 to 48 hour manifesting turnaround, I'm into that. Yeah. I can handle that.
But let's also go back to, because it was, I guess, about a year and a half after COVID. You know, the salon stays open. You open it back up in 4 months. You have got debt up to your eyeballs.
Yes.
You can't keep a full staff just because people weren't coming out.
Yeah.
People weren't getting their hair done. I mean, it was so hard. I remember just, you know, us sitting in the chair and you doing my hair, and it was stress.
Stress.
So much stress.
So much stress, because people were leaving our industry. People were burned out. They didn't want to do hair anymore. They didn't want to deal with people anymore. Everybody came out of COVID not liking people as much as they did before COVID.
Which I think is funny, because everybody isolated from people.
Yeah.
Didn't get to see people, complained about it.
Yeah. And honestly, every year I get older, I find that I don't like people that much.
Really?
Yes.
You don't act like that.
I don't act like that at all. I love people, but just sometimes like people are peopling. And
You've had
Next week on the Soul Talks, part 3 of the Mert McNaughton interview, as we follow her journey navigating post-pandemic challenges, rebuilding her team, and discovering what true leadership really means. Don't miss it.